Hello, Scratchers! Dia and Amir, they found a diary while cleaning up the old trunk. They were surprised to see that the diary was full of numbers. Numbers scribbled pages after pages. They were puzzled and excited at the same time. They called out to the mom, and she told them that their great-great-granddad was a mathematician and liked to write in numbers. She added, he used a very simple encoding and its key is written on the back of the page. Oh, children were amazed, especially with the coincidence, as they knew that they had to use numbers only in their Scratch cloud variables. They wondered, did the Scratch team find their great-great-granddad's diary first? The children immediately jumped to see the key and started to work out the logic on paper. They knew that once they got it worked out, they could easily write code in Scratch to help them decode the entire diary. They were so eager to find out everything their great-granddad wrote for them. So let's join Dia and Amr in this very interesting project of theirs. So the first thing the children got down to do was write down the mapping, because the key said map alphabets from number 10. They started to write A, B, C, D, and then they decided to take a simple word, hello, and see how it would map out. So that looked simple. So they had to start with the first letter and go till the end of the word or the sentence. Oh, if it's a sentence, then they also need a space. That means, along with the alphabets, they also needed to create these special characters, like a space or a comma or a full stop. So they added those also to their table. Now it was a real simple exercise. Start with the first letter H and find out what does that correspond to. So that is 17. Move to the next letter E and that corresponds to 14. So this way, very quickly, they were able to arrive at the word and they started to do longer sentences. Soon they were very confident and they decided to jump in and start coding. Let us also dive into the code. As they did on paper, they decided to create a list to keep a mapping for the same. They're very comfortable using lists as they have been taking many of these Scratch challenges. So they created a list and they called it number to letters. Now they wanted to pre-populate this list. As they always did, they cleaned up the list and for the first 9 they just decided to leave it a blank. Then they started to add all the alphabets and they decided that they can add these special symbols as and when they can think of. But to start with, they decided to add the space, comma and a full stop. Once the list is ready, now let's see what do we need to do the mapping. So looking at the example of hello, Dia and Amr discussed and realized that while everything is written numbers, we need to create something to decode that, but they should also build an algorithm to encode, because that will help them do the testing if the algorithm actually works correctly. So they decided to write 2 functions. One is encode script and the other one is decode script. Now let's see what we need to do for decode script. Now to decode script, we will start with the same hello word which we just did on paper. Now we need a few things. So what we did, we picked up one letter at a time and we did it for the entire sentence. Now we know that there's an operator which can pick up one letter at a time. But in this case, it's actually using 2 digits. And suddenly they were amazed at their grandfather's insight. And if he had used single digit for sum and double digit, it would have the algorithm would have become more difficult. But using 2 digits for everything meant they just had to pick up the letter 1 and the letter 2 and join it up. That's pretty cool. And let's put this in a save block so that we can check. So we wanted to just pick up the first two and we have got that 17. But next time we don't want to pick up 1 and 2, we want to pick up 3 and 4. So that means we need some kind of counter. So we will create a variable count and initially we can set it to 0 and then we will need to do this in a loop. And we know operators give us a lot of functionalities to do with this. So we are going to use a repeat and we can use the length of function over line to decode. So when we created the block, the function decode script, we are taking the parameter line to decode. So basically whatever we want to pass to it, it will get passed here. We are going to pass count here and count plus 1 here. So we will need it. So we're going to use an operator here. Let's test this again. Why are we getting only 1? So join the first, we need the first two. That's the trouble. Okay, so we've got 17. So we can actually take this in a variable so that, when you're coding, if you use variables, it is easy because you can keep seeing the data. So if we take this in a variable and we will call this variable decoding whatever we are decoding next. So we'll call it next code. Now since we are using variables, we will enable so that we can see the data. We've got 17. So now we need to pick up the corresponding alphabet. So what do we use? We use the function from the list. We use the block which fetches as the item from that location and we are going to store it in decoding next code. So item, which item? At 17 number, and let's look at decoding next code. And now when we repeat this, we need to keep forming the line. That means whatever we have till now, we have to keep attaching. So we are using set decoding line. So what we have to join the current decoding line with the decoding next code. This has to be joined and we have to set the count by, remember, by 2 because we read 2 digits. And if you really want to see this executed for the whole word, what you want to do, you want to put a weight so that you can watch it carefully. So put a bigger weight to start with. Okay, let's line up the variables which we need and do this slowly so that we can see it is first H, then it is taking E, the next number 21, L, then the next number 21 again, L, then the next number 24, O, and there our word is formed. So we have been able to decode. Now how will we encode it? You must make sure that you try to write the code yourself. Try to understand, go one by one, and that is why we insist, do it on paper first. To encode the script, we are taking the line to encode, and to encode these are just single letters, not 2. So we start with count 1 and we change the count by 1. So what we have to do is to encode, we have to find out what is the corresponding number to this item. So for H we need to get the 17th number. So again we can run this for hello and test the variables and how they work. And yes, pretty much soon you have the encode script and decode script. Congratulations for this coding algorithm because you will be able to use this when you want to use cloud variables and want to use them to store words. I really hope you enjoyed helping Dia and Amar. Do the coding yourself, make mistakes, fix them. Best way to learn. Have fun. Ta-da!